Assalamu alaikum, people listening and watching. You're tuning into the Let's Walk podcast. I am your host, Atar Rahman, and today's guest is Eunice Lo. She'll be talking about her journey through her journey as a consultant, and now being the founder of IamImpactful, and her journey to expanding it and whatnot. Eunice, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want you to start off with maybe um, your journey into consulting. How did you initially get into consulting?
I didn't start off right after school. I actually was working in an advertising firm beforehand, and I always had the dream of, like a lot of other people, to work in a Big Four consulting firm. And so I guess like while I was leaving my advertising firm, I decided like I wanted to pursue that dream of going to a Big Four consulting firm. So I applied. Uh, To be honest, I actually didn't get in the first time I applied. I kind of got rejected and demotivated, but then I tried again and then for like a different team. And the area that I was focusing in, because that's my background, is data science and analytics. So that's the part of the consulting firm that I applied for. And I guess it's just like a lot of people that I've noticed too have the same dream of like working at a big four consulting firm because it's a really good thing to have on your resume. Every time you say like the name like Deloitte or EY or KPMG and PwC, everybody's like, oh yeah, you must be really smart. You must like, know what you're doing. And so I guess it's like kind of an ego thing to have too. And being of like Asian culture, your parents would be really proud of you if you went to work at those kind of places. Um, and so I kind of wanted to do that and pursue that dream. And when I got the offer, it was like amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally got in. Like, how's this possible? And then I guess like afterwards, after I joined, I realized it's not as great as I thought it was because the grass is always greener on the other side. And like it looks really fancy because I don't know about your city, but in my city, like we have a building that's dedicated for the firm, and it looks really nice. It's like glass building. The first time I went for interviews, I thought it was like super cool. Everybody's like in their nice suits and they're walking around looking like super smart. And so I guess like all the people there also made me feel like, oh, if I could join this group of elite smart people, then I must be suddenly smart too. And so that's like why I joined consulting.
So, you're focused on data analytics and what kind of consulting were you in specifically?
So in data science, because I came from more marketing background, most of the projects that I was working on was marketing related. So understanding your customers, doing some kind of sales forecasting or pricing analytics to understand like what to price your products at or who to target with your um, marketing because it's backed by data and analytics and data science instead of just going like we're gonna mass market to all these people. Instead it's all backed by data and analysis. A lot of it could range from saying like doing data visualizations through Tableau or Power BI or doing more comprehensive things like actual like forecasting and statistical modeling. So there's quite a range of stuff, but it would mostly focus on applications for marketing, like the marketing side of companies. And it would be more for like, say, the banks, or in Canada, we have a lot of cannabis industry that's growing. So there's a lot of cannabis as well. And so it's mostly for like banks, cannabis, retail, and yeah, really big retail.
So you get all the so your job is basically to get all the data and then consult on how the marketing should be done and what areas to pinpoint.
Yeah, exactly. And then so not only do we grab the data from them and like third parties, but we also do all the analysis and then provide like our recommendations on like what to do. So it's quite extensive in that sense, but it's not like your typical consulting where it's like more just strategy. We do like a little bit of like strategy too. Like if you don't have your data yet, like this is what you should do to be able to have the ability to get that data in the future, but it's not too focused on like the data strategy piece. It's more so about like application.
Hmm. So now you join the big four companies. Then what happened? Like you saw all the people wearing suits, the elite group. So now what happens?
Yeah, I guess like the thought that everybody has of consulting firms is usually they're able to travel a lot and it's really prestigious because you get to like travel all the time, and like for people who are young like us and like love to travel, it sounds like a very exciting opportunity. I think maybe because of the fact that I was in a team that didn't travel as much in like the data department. Even if we do travel, at least in Canada, we can only travel within Canada because our projects are only within Canada. So it's not as exciting as going to like Europe or like even Asia. Like sometimes I know some people who might have gone to the US, but even if they went to the US, it's very like remote areas of the US. It's not like we're going to Las Vegas or New York or anything like that. It's like some town in the middle of nowhere because their company is maybe like a factory, and so you usually just go to the factory instead, so it's not as exciting. So then the whole travel thing was kind of boring. Like you went not to experience the city, which is what you usually do when you travel. It's more just like you visit the headquarters of that office, which usually is not in the city, and you have to, actually work the entire time. So there's nothing to really do. So the travel part was kind of missing. And then I would say overall work culture was kind of missing as well. I think it really depends on which team you're in, because I know some people, like some of my other friends, who were in really good teams that had a really good team culture as well. But I think it really depends on who your partner is and what kind of culture that they instill in the team. Because since there's no like official boss in consulting, like you only have like a coach who kind of helps you steer your career within the firm. And there's not somebody who actually manages you to say, like, oh, you should be doing this work or you should be on this project. You kind of sometimes have to fight for the projects yourself. So, because of that competitive environment, if you don't really strive in a political, for like kind of place where you have to fight for yourself, you have to fight for your promotion, you have to fight for your raise, you have to fight to get on a good project. If you don't really thrive in that kind of environment that well, it's really tough. So it's something I didn't know before I went into consulting. So I wish if I started from fresh, I would have wished that I did more research on how the culture is like in consulting, and then realize that maybe it's not for me. Um, I did talk to some friends who, when they first graduated university and went into consulting, they only stayed like 3 to 6 months. And so I asked them, like, you went to such good place to work, like, why did you only stay for so short? And they told me that it was like very toxic for them. They felt like it was a very competitive environment. People kept trying to step on them and stuff like that. And so at first I was like, oh, maybe it's just your experience. Maybe it's not going to happen to me. And then I didn't realize that it would happen to me too. So I guess the overall culture was just not for me. Not to say that there's not any teams that have good culture. Like there's definitely some teams that are okay, but I guess the team that I decided, like I went into, just wasn't the most like team bonding, team culture style.
Wow. So like I've heard from some of my cousins, some of my friends who have worked in like MNCs. They say the culture is they find it tough, like where there are some people, trying to tear each other apart, and you can only go so far, right? That's not something more, I would say, constructive and building you up. It's more like the crab bucket, that kind of mentality that happens. And I think that is why some of them, what they did is, they worked in some company for a time, and then they switched up to, maybe there's going to be a new story, but the same story repeats again. And this one thing, they too find it, like which is something more to bear, like the job is good, everything is good, but I think it's like you mentioned, there are some teams, they have the good culture and everything, but there are some teams which don't. So you went into a team which wasn't having that good of a work culture. So then what happened? Then did you like immediately say that, no, I'm going to stop working, or like how did you make the decision?
I think like I kind of realized the team culture didn't really fit with me maybe about like 4 or 5 months in. And so you can't, well, you could leave like after 4 or 5 months, but it doesn't look good. Like it doesn't look good on your resume and it doesn't like you if you went to a place like Deloitte, you want to have that name on your resume. So you want to say that you at least worked a year because then on your future employers, that would look good. So I set a benchmark for myself saying like, okay, I'll only stay until the 1 year mark and then maybe I'll like keep looking for jobs. And so because I had that kind of goal in my mind, it was a lot easier for me to consistently go to work even though I didn't enjoy it because I was like, I need to reach that milestone of going to 1 year. And I was like, while I was like waiting for that milestone to happen, I wanted to find the ways to that I could grow and learn as much as possible during that 1 year. So I would, try to reach out to different directors or partners and ask for work that I thought was challenging and exciting. I don't think it was that challenging and exciting, but I what I did instead is instead of focusing and making like my job at Deloitte my main focus of my life, I tried to find something outside of work that made me excited. So while I was working at Deloitte, I was actually working as a nonprofit as well as a kind of like a lead for the city I was in, so Toronto. I helped them to organize like how to make their nonprofit better, how to scale their nonprofit. And because of that, I was able to shift all the energy and the passion that I had at work to volunteering instead. And so maybe my day job, my 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, was not as exciting, but at least I had something else in my life that was more exciting. So that's like one thing. And then so after I passed the 1 year mark, I was like, you know what, maybe I should stay longer than a year so that I can get at least promoted so that I can show that I'm like better than just staying here at 1 year. So my next goal after staying 1 year was I wanted to get promoted. And so that is a little bit more difficult than I expected because I learned that if you want to get promoted, you have to not only show your partner and your coach that you're really good at what you do, but you have to show all the other partners who are involved with promoting you. So there's like, even if you have multiple partners in your team, there's especially usually one partner who has the most say and who has the most power at the table to say like this person needs to get promoted. So if you want to get promoted, you have to like win the favor of that partner, whether it's showing all the work that you do and like emailing them like I did this project, I did that, here's a summary of like how I was helpful in this project, or you have to just be above and beyond and help them. So one of my other coworkers, how they did it, it was like they would try to set up like team bonding events and like team culture events to kind of show that they're a team player. And so because that partner really liked that aspect, they got promoted eventually. But I think it's like you have to be, if you really want to get promoted, you have to be very strategic about what you do. So you have to find the person who has the most power and like win their favor. And it sounds really um like not not nice. Like it kind of sounds like a little evil sometimes, but it's just like the game that you have to play. And so eventually I did get promoted and I did get the role, but it's just like the main reason why I eventually left was like I just didn't feel like doing this over and over again, like this playing this game all the time. And I just didn't really see a future for myself there. I just like thought if I had to keep doing this for another year, like I don't think I could do that. Um, and so that's why I eventually left. But I think the main reasons why I stayed was I had these little milestones for myself of like stay a year, get like promoted, and learn X, Y, and Z. But like that's one thing. And then the second other thing is like always to have something outside of work that excites me more. So that was the nonprofit for a while. And then I also had a couple side hustles that made me more excited. And so eventually, like the things outside of work took more excitement from me that I just decided that I want to focus more on that instead of my career at Deloitte.
So so basically you said you help the non-profit organization with their marketing. So I think the biggest mistake which people, when they leave the 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 is, they just say I leave, and then they don't have anything, like, they don't have other job. This is sort of a unique thing I'm seeing, that, you first went out and, checked out other options, as to what you want to be doing if you weren't doing the job. So tell a little bit about that.
I think like it comes with a certain personality. I definitely don't think it's like something everybody does, but usually am the type of person who has a kind of dream in mind. So I always had a dream in mind to work with nonprofits and have them as a client maybe, or maybe even to do my own firm where I help nonprofits. So I wanted to test that theory of like, do I really want to do that as a future? And so I decided a light way of testing that kind of thought was to actually go help another nonprofit. And then by helping in that nonprofit and being in that industry, I could see if I actually liked that kind of business model and that kind of industry. And I did like it to a certain extent, but there's like certain things about the nonprofit industry that I don't enjoy. So then it's good so that I didn't invest a lot of money and like my day job just to do it. So I like to usually if I talk to people, I would say like, "Oh, I'm thinking of like say switching to becoming a lawyer or becoming a doctor or trying this new job." What I usually tell people is instead of like making like a whole different switch and investing all your time and energy into it, I would try to find like a light way to test whether you actually enjoy it or not. Say, for example, like you want to switch from business into being a doctor. There's a lot of things that are very interesting about being a doctor. Maybe that person wanted to switch because they thought it's a very fulfilling to like heal people. So that's one aspect of being a doctor. But to be a doctor, you have to go through like 10 plus years of schooling. There's a lot of rigorous training. You might not be able to sleep because you have to do like 24-hour shifts. And so there's all this like other aspects of a job which is not necessarily fun. And so I always want ask people like try to test to see if you like the good and the bad of a job. And so for me, like going into helping a nonprofit helped me to understand the good and the bad of working with nonprofits and realizing whether I actually like it or not. And so it was a good experience to have because then I was able to do all of that without actually investing a lot of my money or time. Like I just spent my weekends doing it, but like I didn't have to say like have no salary and do it. So I could keep my like consulting salary and still try to pursue it. And I think before I quit Deloitte too, I'm not the type of person who just like quits cold turkey and not have like a backup plan. Like I always try to have like a plan B if I go into something risky like quitting your job. So I already, before I quit, I had like a couple of hypotheses of like what I would want to do after I quit. So I didn't have a lot of time to test out the ideas yet, but I knew like I wanted to test them out first and see like, do I want to do workshops, or do I want to do one-on-one coaching, or do I want to do more like general social media? Like, so I had a lot of these ideas and thoughts, and I knew I wanted to start something about like how to find your career that you're more passionate and enjoyable about. And so, because I knew like what my overall mission was and like who I wanted to help, I was just like, I'm going to try this, and like I'm going to test a lot of different ways to help these types of people. And then because I knew it's going to take some time for any new business to start, uh, I gave myself enough savings so that I could last like a whole year without earning any money, so that it's a lot easier and I don't feel like that stressed out. Because usually, if you quit a job or do something risky like that without any kind of backup plan or savings, it gets really stressful when you have no income coming through the door. So that's another suggestion as well.
Yep. That's nice because like if somebody has that saving, they can do whatever they want with a peace of mind. They won't be like how can I monetize this thing when it is just starting off the ground. uh, and like with this, I want to segue into how did I am impactful like come into existence. Just dive into the story, like you mentioned, you tried helping different people with their career, how to find your purpose in life and the career which one wants to go in. So tell us a little bit about that.
I guess like I'll start with like, for me, I was starting to reach the age of 20, like, so I'm 28 now and turning 29, and I was reaching that point of like 30 when a lot of us, when we get to closer and closer to 30, we're like, oh shit, we don't have our life together. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, should we like get married? Should we go get this career? Should we buy this and all this, like buy a house and buy a car and like all these kind of things? And when I was getting closer to this age, I realized a lot of my friends were thinking the same thing. Like, we are feeling really bored or like burnt out from our careers, and we just don't find it enjoyable anymore. And so, myself included, and a lot of my friends kept asking, like, what are we supposed to do with our life? Like, why are we feeling this quarter life crisis all the time and feeling like we don't know what we're supposed to do with our life, and trying to keep thinking about how do we switch from this job? And every time we switch jobs, we just don't enjoy it. So I personally felt like I wanted to find the answer for myself as well as for other people around me. So I decided like I'm going to try to find this out. So I have always like read a lot of like self-help, self-improvement type of books. And so there was a self-improvement book called I think Ikigai is the book, and like finding your Ikigai or something like that. And they may basically talk about how to find your purpose in life, and they use like a Japanese framework to look at it. But I used it a lot over the years, and I didn't feel like I actually used it that well. So like I knew about this Ikigai thing for 4 years now, and I have always analyzed. So in the Ikigai, there's like they talk about what do you look at, like what you like what are your passions, what are your skill sets, and also like what the world needs and how you can earn money. And if you can mesh all four of them together, that's like your Ikigai and your purpose in life. It's easy to kind of like map all these things out, but then I found it was really hard for me to actually like find this intersection between all four things and stick to it all the time. So I was like, why is it like this book that wrote about it that's so popular, they say like to find this intersection, and I found it, but it's not sticking with me. Like, I'll find an intersection and go like, I think I like to do this, but like it's still, and then I pursue that thing, but it's still not um filling me up. Like, say for example, I did the Ikigai one year and I decided I want to help nonprofits with data science stuff, and So I tried to do that and I could make money doing it. So I filled all four areas. I liked it, I was good at it, I could make money from it, and it's something that the world needs. But for some reason, I couldn't actually keep doing it day in and day out. So I was like, what is missing? And then so I reflected a lot on it and I realized it's because at that one time when I did the Ikigai, it was something that I was passionate about. But over time, after learning more about the industry and seeing the good and the bad parts of it, I didn't like it that much anymore. So that's like one of the main things that I learned from that. And I thought, like, while I was talking to my friends about it, I realized that they don't know about these kind of things too. And I was like, but everybody wants to know how to find their passion and purpose in life. They just don't know how to find it. So I thought, like, why don't I be the catalyst and be the voice of like how to find these things, especially since I've done a lot of the research and reflection myself. And so that's pretty much how I came up with the thought of doing I Am Impactful. And I actually did the Ikigai thing to myself right before I came up with this idea too. I was at a point in my Deloitte career which I felt really lost in life. And so I was like, why not try this Ikigai thing again? So I did it to myself and I realized I have a lot of passions in a lot of different areas. I have a lot of skills, and there's a lot of things that the world needs. And it's so easy to make money nowadays, like in the digital age. So because there's so many opportunities out there, I got confused. I was like, how do I could do this, but then I could also do this, and I can have like this, and then there's like so many options. And so like, how do I pick one? And so I realize it's not about picking one, it's more about where are you in the moment right now and who do you want to help? Because if you want to help a certain people, you find more enjoyment from helping them more than just because you want to achieve a dream. Like if your dream was to like buy a fancy Porsche car, once you get that dream of finding the Porsche car, you're not no longer like satisfied because you already have the Porsche car. Like, what's your next dream? And so you keep leveling up in these dreams, and it's not like overall, it's not very fulfilling because then you just have to keep finding that next dream. Versus if you figure out like who you want to help and then like consistently help them, there's always going to be new problems that this group has that you can always help them with. So you're always going to be fulfilled by them. And so it's less so like I need to be like a mentor to this group of people or I need to coach these people. It's just how can you make the world a better place by helping these people? And so I think like one of the main, like while I was evaluating all these different opportunities that I could pursue, one of the main things that I liked about I'm Impactful was the fact that I was in this place of being like hating my job and not finding fulfillment in it for so long that I thought if I already like at least got past the part of hating my job and left it, at least I could help the people who are stuck in a toxic workplace, are stuck in that kind of environment get out of it. So it's not about like being a guru or being the smartest one in the room, but it's just how do you help people who have been in a situation that you were before get out of it? And so I thought I just wanted to make I Am Impactful because I thought I have a lot of learnings that I could share with other people and hopefully some like I hope that like whatever I'm talking about or posting on the internet is like super helpful for others.
uh, this point you mentioned, right? Like when you have a dream that I want to get this Porsche car, and then when you achieve it, then there's one more dream, and it's like I think that's the thing with like if your goals are like materialistic. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that it's bad to have materialistic goals, but what I'm saying is like when you have something, it's like more tangible. Uh, that's where I feel that usually that's where we won't feel fulfilled. But when we help people, that's not something we can catch. right? That's not some, that's only what we can feel. And that's where you feel, you are helping others, you'll feel fulfilled, and at the same time you can see their growth, right?
Hmm.
And I think, that is why it is fulfilling. I don't know, I might be wrong on this one, but there's some sort of theory going on in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think if you read a lot of like psychology books as well, they talk about um like the general psychology framework is the Maslow's hierarchy. So after you reach the basic needs of having like shelter and water and food, afterwards you want to have belonging and have self-actualization. And so I think like by helping others, you get more of that sense of belonging and that self-actualization because you're able to help others. And versus like if you just like provide money for others, it's not as fulfilling because you don't actually see their life being changed. And I think like when you go, say, for example, do volunteering or helping someone else, like even just helping your family, and you see like the impact it makes, it's definitely more that those memories and that feeling is much more fulfilling than just buying nice things.
So this is a part of the podcast, where I question about life to bring life in perspective. So these are the perspective questions. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you were to go back in time, would you
Hmm.
change anything?
I, if I could go back in time, I think one of the things I recently have been thinking about is I wish I learned how to, not just like how to, but like I wish I learned more about psychology and self-help, like self-improvement earlier. So like I felt I was a little late in doing this because a lot of my childhood was very stuck in like being a super good Christian. And not to say that like Christianity is different than psychology or self-improvement. I just think that like I focused so much on Christianity and studying the Bible and stuff that I didn't spend a lot of time to study other things outside of it, like and open up my eyes to different types of worldviews and values. And so I wish that I had the opportunity earlier in life to kind of explore more different world values and views and also explore different types of personalities. So I think like when I was young, I focused a lot on finding people who are very similar to me and thought in the same ways as me, had the same background and upbringing. And so that didn't give me a lot of perspective in life. And so I wish that if I could go backwards in time, that I met more new people who were very different from me, maybe had a different upbringing, maybe more like, so I'm in middle class, so I wish I learned like how the rich and the poor were like and how their life was different than mine. I also wish that I maybe interacted with people who are not as like similar mindset. So like I'm very science and technology and math mindset. So those are like my main passions and focus in life. So nowadays I talk to people who are more in arts or like dancers or like things like that, which are they live a very different lifestyle. And so I wish I kind of opened my eyes to like different types of people. And I'm also, if you like to think about MBTIs and personalities and stuff like that, I'm more of like a ST thinker, so sensing and thinking and judging. And so I wish I like learned more about people who are more intuitive and feelers. And so they have a different thought process than I do. So if I was able to go back and like, explore more types of people who are different than me, I think that it would be easier for me to understand others for one. And then I would be able to have a broader perspective of how the world works so that I could be easier in finding these things like finding my passion and helping others earlier on in life because I actually, even though I'm only 28 and a lot of people think that I'm like still young, I still kind of feel like I'm a little old because then now I have a lot of different goals that I want to achieve. I want to, after coronavirus, like go be a digital nomad. And I feel like I'm a little late to be a digital nomad. Normally people start when they're like 24. And then also like there's other like family goals. Like I want to settle down and have a partner and like have kids. And so it's like I feel like I'm pushed to finish all these in like the next 5 years type of thing. But if I started it earlier, then it would have had more time to explore these things and explore like what do I enjoy? What are my values? What are my like viewpoints instead of just sticking with like these are the Christian values, these are like my parents' values, and try to explore more different viewpoints.
Wow, that's interesting. Like you mentioned this point that you used to meet with people who have similar mindsets, similar thought processes, and now listening to you, I feel this is one thing that I think everybody does that.
Hmm.
Whether knowing it or unknowingly, we all love to talk to people who have similar mindsets and think in a similar way. And I think the more we expose ourselves to people from different backgrounds, different mindsets, different thought processes, different stories, we'll grow and evolve more as a person, which you are doing now by, like you mentioned, um, meeting up with dancers and people from liberal arts and whatnot. That's interesting. But like you mentioned, that there's a lot of like you have a lot of goals, but the time to accomplish them is less, and that is what is. I don't know, man. Like it's it's like every. I think it's like maybe it's like we have very few like essential goals, and then there's like a lot of other goals which maybe this the society is putting it on us. Did you feel the same thing?
Yeah, sometimes like when I'm reflecting on my life and like what I want to do with it, I find it very difficult to dissect between what I want versus what other people want because like especially since we use social media so much nowadays and we see like somebody's Instagram and like say for example, you're just looking at somebody's like food pictures and then you're like, "Oh, now I'm fine." Like maybe you see pizza and you're like, "Oh, I crave pizza now." Or like you see like fried chicken and you start craving fried chicken. It's like it's sometimes really hard to like dissect between what other people are posting and you see all over the internet all the time versus like what you actually want. So I think like back to that example of somebody wants to all of a sudden switch their career to be a doctor. Sometimes I think like maybe instead of like it's a good thing that we have all these dreams, is there like usually I think nowadays like if I have all these dreams, is there like a small way I can test to see if I actually like this? Like say yesterday I was watching something about interior designing and they were designing like really small like apartments and making it very livable space. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I remember I wanted to be an interior designer when I was younger. Maybe I should try pursuing interior design. And then I was like, you know what? Instead of like switching fully into interior design, why not I start with like researching people who are in interior design and figure out, do I actually want to have their job? Is it actually as interesting? Is it only because I like to see pretty nice houses, like consuming that stuff, or do I actually want to pursue that kind of career? And so I think like after that, like after the researching of do I want that kind of job, second is to like actually start learning it. And then if I start learning it, I was like, okay, maybe I actually do like this, then actually start applying those skill sets of like the things that I learned. And then that I feel like those are easy ways to test this new dream instead of like fully going into the dream and going like, okay, I have to abandon all other dreams and just do this dream. So I think it's actually a good thing to have so many different dreams. You just, I guess, have to find a way to like focus on testing each of these instead of like throwing your whole existing life away and just like trying to pursue that.
I have to add that lightweight test to my arsenal before I go full on one thing. That
Hmm.
that's one more thing I have to add, because sometimes I feel like maybe like I have to go full on this thing, but then it's like, oh, did I waste so many years trying to pursue this?
Yeah.
I don't know that sort of thing. So this brings me to the second question, which is, if you were to delete one habit and add one habit to your life, what would that be?
Delete one habit. I wish I could be those types of people who don't watch that much Korean dramas, but for some reason I keep like watching Korean dramas, even though I know it's not a good thing to spend so much time sitting on a couch watching dramas, but I don't know. I think I've like told myself this is your time to digest and this is your time, your self time. So it's actually a good thing. So I programmed my own brain to think that it's actually not a bad thing when it probably is because I'm wasting a lot of time, which I could be using elsewhere. But right now, I'm stuck because in Toronto right now we're in lockdown for COVID. So like I'm stuck inside anyways. I might as well do something that I enjoy. So I spend a lot of time watching Korean dramas, which is not a good thing. But if there was any way to like make that not as fun as it is, I wish I could like remove that habit. And a good habit I wish I could have is it's so bad because of COVID. I haven't been exercising as much. So before, when I could go to the gym all the time, I would go all the time religiously. But now that I'm stuck at home, I gained weight because I just like can't push myself to actually exercise. So I wish I had that habit. I think there's actually a lot of other habits too. Like I wish I could I stick to an actual daily routine because it's good to have like a daily routine to have consistency and so that even if you're feeling unproductive and unmotivated, at least you stick to a routine, like a daily routine to do something. So that's another daily habit I wish I could do.
That's interesting. Which drama have you been watching lately?
Korean drama.
Yeah, which Korean
I
drama?
There's a couple. I just finished one called Penthouse,
You
which is
finished that one?
very Yeah, it's very it's I think like the most popular one in Korea right now. There's like the second season. It's waiting for the third season in June. And then there's one that I've been watching recently. If you really like mysteries or thrillers, called Mouse, and it's about psychopaths that are killers, serial killers. So it's very intense and thrillers. It gives me nightmares at night.
Uh, so yeah, I've heard of Penthouse. Like uh, it's been like really like one of the favorites in India, and
Mm,
it has been on the Netflix top like the top lists and whatnot, and it's also there on Rakuten. So many people are watching through Rakuten, and
mm.
Unispace is the best place people can find you.
You can find me on Instagram or YouTube. My Instagram handle is Eunice, EUNICEWLO. And then also on YouTube, if you just search my name, Eunice Lo, you can also find me there as well.
Okay. So, people listening and watching, this brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you guys learned something from it, whether it's maybe having that savings before quitting the job or maybe some other thing. I definitely learned a lot. And thank you guys for tuning in. And we will see you in the next one. You guys know what to do. Stay blessed, keep taking action.